Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the TikTokification of literature, and I have a lot to say about it. In fact, I've got notes on my phone, so if I'm looking down, you know why. They're there so I don't go off on a tangent, because I have very opinionated takes on TikTok and its effect on books, so I need a script of sorts. Anyway, if you're on the book side of the internet, you've seen the infamous TikTok that said, "I'll never forgive TikTok for what it's done to literature. I miss when literature actually meant something." And well, I've got thoughts about it. So this TikTok, to actually read it out, the whole thing to you, reads as this: "I'll never forgive TikTok for what it's done to literature. Every book just being a generic genre of good girl, bad boy, mafia boss, etc. I miss the books that critiqued society so hard you felt angry yourself. I miss the literature that only made sense to those who cared. I miss poetry that you really had to analyse to make sense of it. I miss the gut-wrenching historical books. I miss when literature actually meant something." And here's the thing. Literature is still all of those things. It still exists. You are just really snobbish and also on the wrong part of TikTok for you. Your FYP is not FYP the way it should FYP. So, another thing I want to kind of touch on for that quote specifically is that generic genre of good girl, bad boy, mafia boss, etc. That's just romance. That's one genre out of a plethora of genres in literature that's available to you. And if that's not for you, that's fine. Just don't read mafia romances. You don't have to engage with it. But if it's on your FYP and your FYP is based off what you interact with, then maybe you need to extend and expand who you're following, the creators that you interact with. Maybe it's actually a you problem, and it's not that literature is suddenly bad, or that there's such a concept as bad literature. Like, I myself would never read a mafia romance. It doesn't appeal to me. I have no desire to, but that's totally fine. I'm not then annoyed, though, that other people do read those books. I couldn't care less. If you like mafia romances, that's for you. But not really my thing, so I don't read them. It doesn't make me feel like all literature is terrible now. That's just a subgenre of romance that I don't enjoy, and that's fine. So, the books I see on TikTok are literary translations, some romance, and poetry, because that's what I read. So, my FYP reflects my taste. Now, sometimes, as I'm sure you're aware if you use TikTok, you do get a rogue TikTok troll in there that is not anything to do with your interests, be it bookish or otherwise, and that does happen. But if all you're seeing is mafia romances, then that is a you problem. And it is the onus is on you to expand who you're following, who you're interacting with, the type of literature that you are engaging with online. Because if all you're being shown is mafia romances, maybe it's telling you that you're actually hate watching because you know you don't like it, and you're just watching it, and it's then, as a result, it's fueling your belief that all that literature is now is mafia romances. Maybe you should think about that. BookTok, what is it? It is a place, it's a part of TikTok where people talk about books. And that is book reviews, book vlogs, challenges, reading hauls, book hauls, anything to do with books. And, you know, it's great because it has impacted sales of books. That's a huge plus, and why it kind of blew up, and it was an amazing thing in the beginning. People saw the positives of it. For example, it made authors' backlists suddenly bestsellers again. The two examples of this that I've read are The Song of Achilles, which was published in 2012, and I got around to reading it in 2021, and it was on all the charts. And similarly, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, that was published in 2017 and is still, bestsellers in 2024, and that is the power of TikTok. These two books, neither of them are mafia romances or romances of any sort. Taylor Jenkins Reid, hers is a historical fiction biography type thing, and The Song of Achilles is a Greek retelling. And they are both wonderfully written. Just because something is popular doesn't make it bad. It also, TikTok has allowed for more diverse reading and representation, because people are being allowed to discover books that they wouldn't otherwise, and authors who might not necessarily otherwise be able to, get coverage on mainstream media are able to do so on TikTok. It's been especially really good for authors. That it strengthens the author-reader relationship, and also indie authors have been able to get their work out there in a similar fashion. The likes of Colleen Hoover, independently published. If I'm not mistaken, I should say, I think some of her works and more of her works are now being, republished and traditionally published. But for a very long time, she was an indie author, and she's huge on BookTok. That doesn't make her bad. Now, I know there's certain issues with her, and she does have some odd parts of her book, but not everything is meant to be analysed. Not everything is meant to, be that literary masterpiece. Even to define what a literary masterpiece is, that's open to interpretation as well. The biggest thing about BookTok is that it has fostered a sense of community amongst book lovers, with creators and viewers as well. And reading, originally, when we think about it, is quite a solitary activity, and it's become a group activity almost through BookTok. And it's so lovely, because it has allowed people who felt as though reading wasn't for them, or they weren't smart enough for it maybe, or because BookTok, or books and reading, shall I say, have been shrouded in this kind of snobbery and kind of like classist notion for a very long time, and that BookTok has allowed readers for everyone to be a reader, really, and that people who felt that it wasn't for them, that they've found that it is, and it created a really, really lovely community. But as of recently, the tide has kind of turned, and BookTok has been blamed for the downfall of literature, and we're delving back into that kind of snobbery again. There is a criticism that BookTok primarily lifts up fiction that is of a lesser quality, and we cannot ignore the undercurrent of misogyny in that statement, because for too long, this is a quote from Euronews.culture, that for too long, romance novels have faced unfair and often misogynistic disapproval based purely on its popularity over literary genres. And BookTok is primarily romance-centric. There are more, Taylor Jenkins Reid and The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller being examples of this, but it's not all. Sure, you've got your smutty romances like Icebreaker by Hannah Grace and The Deal by Elle Kennedy, but you equally have Donna Tartt's The Secret History and The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. And you cannot tell me that they're not literature, because they have been recognised as such for so long. And then suddenly, when they're put in the same category as Icebreaker and, you know, I don't know, any other, you know, mafia romance, as I keep referring to that because that was the quote that kind of kicked all this off. Suddenly then, all literature is bad. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't... It's simply not true. TikTok has made reading accessible to so many people who felt it wasn't for them previously. That 59% of 16 to 25-year-olds say that BookTok has helped them discover a passion for reading. It's all well and good to, you know, be able to analyse and struggle to understand stuff, but that turns people off. It means that literature is inaccessible. People are discouraged from reading, and you should not have to struggle to understand something. That's just my opinion. If something is so not discernible, then it's a sign of a book that isn't good, in my opinion. I understand there are more difficult texts, but reading isn't just for the select few. Reading is not for the select few. The snobbery needs to stop, okay? Because TikTok books equal popular books. It's not one genre, and it doesn't make them bad. We see a lot nowadays in bookstores. There's the TikTok desks or tables, and so many people will look at them and be like, oh, they're all awful. And then you have flipping Margaret Atwood in there, and A Little Life, for example. And then you would at the same time have your more cheesy romances. But that's because everyone has different tastes. Books cater for different moods, different perspectives, different people. And just what's for one person may not be for you, but that doesn't make that person incorrect for enjoying that thing. You'll have A Little Life with The Spanish Love Deception in one video, two vastly different books that can appeal to two very different kinds of readers, and sometimes there is an overlap in that reader. Reading is so individual and subjective. BookTok began as such a lovely place of encouragement, where we broke down the snobbery and sense of superiority that stopped people from engaging with literature, and as a result people found that they actually liked reading, if not loved it. And somewhere along the way, the sense of community and inclusivity got lost, and we need to bring it back. The TikTokification of literature started out as a really great thing. It meant that authors who had previously, you know, not been too well known have been brought to the fore, and so many people have got to enjoy their work. And it also had the sense of community, and it was so lovely. And, you know, it had great impacts on sales. People were reading like never before. And it was just all around a great thing. And then out of nowhere, the snobberies come back in, and I don't know how to fix it. But I'm hoping that maybe someone is convinced by my thoughts. It's just really unfortunate that people think they have the right, or they feel the need to judge people for reading certain books. And, you know, if you want to analyze books and feel something, you can do that. One final thing before we go. This notion that literature has to mean something. She says, I miss when literature actually meant something. What does that mean to you, though? because who's to say it doesn't mean something to the people that are reading the mafia romances or the paranormal murder mysteries? Meaning something, literature meaning something can be so many things. It can mean escapism for so many people. It can mean learning about a specific topic, educating yourself. It can be about learning about yourself. Self-help books, they're not for me, but other people love them. That's not to say that they're not great. See, this is me being non-judgmental. It's how we should all be about each other's reading. Meaning something. What do you even mean by that? Like, who's to say what other people are reading doesn't mean something to them? Maybe the people, like this person in particular that made this TikTok, maybe you should sit back and evaluate why reading and literature has stopped meaning something to you. And why you feel the need to gatekeep it so much, because, as I say, this seems like more of a you problem as opposed to publishing right now. And look, we'll leave with one final thing. There are some things I've read and I've thought that they're awful and probably shouldn't have been published. But I sit with the knowledge and knowing that that is my opinion. It is not the opinion. I think of I want to die but I want to eat tteokbokki when I say this, because I genuinely don't understand how that is a runaway bestseller. I don't see the appeal in it at all. I made a TikTok rant about this, so I'm not going to go on about it here. But I have to accept and at least try to see how others would find comfort in it and find joy in it. Do I think it is the worst thing ever? Yes. But do I think that others shouldn't be allowed to read it or shouldn't read it? No. I'm gonna leave you all with that. Maybe sit and think about your opinion of BookTok and reading and why it angers you so much, because if you do sit and think about it, I think you will come to the conclusion that that problem is actually with you and not literature nowadays. Okay, thanks for watching.